This is Real News Media TV, coverage you can trust. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates. Schools to continue online classes today, says Education Ministry. The Ministry of Education and Youth is advising that based on the latest update from the Meteorological Office, schools should remain in the remote online modalities and only have face-to-face classes where conditions are safe. According to the Met Office, unstable weather conditions are expected to remain across the island and the showers and the thunderstorms to continue across the parishes into Tuesday afternoon. In a press release yesterday, the ministry said, as was previously advised, boards and the principals should continue to exercise caution in determining the operations of schools for Tuesday, September 27, 2022. Bulletin 133, 2022, entitled Severe Weather Alert, provides additional guidance for our schools. Again, we ask school administrators to continue to use their communication channels to inform parents, students, and the staff to provide updates on the operations of schools based on their local situation. All staff and the parents should exercise their best judgment, paying special attention to self-care and safety in all circumstances, the Education Ministry said. Alleged gunman in ambush attack shot by cop in Spanish Town. An alleged gunman was shot and injured by a policeman on Saturday night in the Fairfield Road area of Spanish Town, St. Catherine. He has been identified as 23-year-old Michael Smith, otherwise called Janoy, of a Fairfield Road address. Police report that about 11:45 p.m., Smith and an armed accomplice attempted to ambush the policeman after the cop pulled up at his home, but the lawman took evasive action and fired at his attackers, hitting Smith. Both gunmen fled on foot, but Smith later turned up at a hospital with gunshot wounds to the face and was admitted in serious but stable condition. Smith was subsequently hit with a battery of charges, including shooting with intent, discharge of firearm, and recovery of firearm. Police recovered a shotgun, one live 12-gauge round, several 9mm casings, and a red and white mask from the scene. Clarendon and St. Catherine worst hit as floods ravage roads. A day after being spared the rainy wrath of Hurricane Ian when it was a less powerful tropical storm, the weather system drenched southern Jamaica with near relentless rain for much of Monday, ravaging roads and triggering landslides as it barreled towards Florida. While moderate to heavy rainfall was recorded in St. Elizabeth to the west and Kingston and St. Thomas to the east, Ian's outer bands exacted the greatest damage in the south-central parishes of Clarendon and St. Catherine. Much of the island's drain infrastructure was tested and failed. Commuters who traverse the Colonel's Ridge to Brandon Hill route in Clarendon will face even more hardship as the road deteriorated after taking a battering from the storm rains. Principal of Mount Carmel Primary, Juliet Edwin Williams, said the erosion of the thoroughfare presents a grave danger. It has also heightened her fears of being trapped on the road during heavy rainfall. Even today, there are several land slippages on the road. I can't really leave out unless I am sure, so sometimes I have to call persons on the road to find out if the passage is clear before I can actually leave out, she told the news on Monday. Lamenting at least a decade of flood woes in the community, Edwin Williams said that the deplorable drainage infrastructure chronically causes displacement for school operations as teachers are often allowed to leave early once it starts raining. Stephen Shaw, the communications point man at the National Works Agency, gave a laundry list of affected areas in Clarendon, including Maypen, Mineral Heights, Freetown to Rasta Gully, Inun Town, Maypen to Soursop Turn, Douglas Castle, and Mackney. Flooding was also reported in Bottom Halls Hall and at the Alley Bridge. A yawning breakaway at Sutton Square has also worsened. In St. Catherine, several areas suffered knee to waist high flooding, among them Joe Blaine, Hampton Green, St. John's Road, Johnson Pen Road, Walks Road, and the Strathmore Gardens. And despite expanding its intake capacity and expenditure of more than $20 million, Big Pond in Bannister, St. Catherine, continues to be a virtual swimming pool during heavy rains. I was called to pick up a passenger in Bullet Tree, but when I reach here, the big pond take over the road. I am not prepared to put my vehicle through this water, Marvin Douglas, a taxi driver, told the news on Monday. Douglas said that the pond, which links Old Harbor, Spanish Town, Bullet Tree, and other areas, has been a source of distress for commuters. Mark Wright, who lives on Sylvester Drive, believes that the problem can be addressed if the corridor is elevated. I have been living here for 45 years and continue to suffer from the flooding. I have recommended that the authorities lift the road about 3 feet, Wright said. Once the road lift and culverts are clean, the work is done. Bullet Tree resident Deborah Jones said that her household has looked on with dread whenever dark clouds hover. She has endured flood ordeals for decades. When I came here 24 years ago, I did not know there was a pond in the area until I started to build the house, Jones said. Each time it rains, there is a wave of anxiety. This pond is a real threat to development and growth. Back in Clarendon, Edwin Williams is fearful that more showers could saturate Colonel's Ridge, carving deeper potholes and drenches and softening the embankment where motorists currently drive. The drains are already blocked, and with the volume of water, it is going to be more hazardous to navigate, she told the news. Transport authorities are lamenting the wear and tear of deplorable roads, citing costly maintenance budgets because of damage, suspension, and front-end parts. Taxi rides from Pennant, said Edwin Williams, take as long as 90 minutes because of the uneven surface. The other day, they were going down, and the taxi bottom began to scratch, she said, of the rumbling of the vehicle's undercarriage against the road surface. They had to get out of the taxi and walk a part of the journey. Don't listen to Chang. Crawford warns the cops they could face Indicom alone. Opposition Senator Damian Crawford says members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force should ignore comments made by Minister of National Security, Dr. Harris Chang, which seems to encourage them to ensure that criminals who fire their weapons at the police do not survive. Chang, who is also the Deputy Prime Minister, has received both support and criticism for the controversial statements he made recently in Westmoreland. He said, the police not out there shooting down people like that. There are fatal shootings because man shoot gun after them. I am not telling police not to fire back. And I say it right here in Westmoreland, I am not sending no ambulance out there either. Chang added that, anytime a man takes up a gun after a police officer, I expect Commissioner Anthony Anderson to train them so that when him fire, he must not miss. Continuing, he said, I don't want him to come give any trouble to the hospital. I am not in that business. You go to the hospital, it costs us $10 million to save him life. I am not into that. When criminals the police come, he must surrender. Crawford weighed in on the ongoing discussion on Friday as the Senate debated and passed the Firearms Prohibition Restriction and Regulation Act 2022. I agree with Chang that if it is in defense of your life, whether as a citizen or a police, you do have the right to take another life, and I would say the police should take the life if there's no other alternative, said Crawford. What I would warn the police about, however, is not to take on this instruction that it costs too much to treat the injured or not to call ambulance or send ambulance, because when Indicom come, this government is not going to hire your lawyer, he added. So I'm saying to these policemen, be careful how you are encouraged to act in certain ways that you alone have to answer when time has come. Meanwhile, Crawford said he was in agreement with a fellow senator that some criminals should be designated enemies of the state. The facilitators of criminal activities, the encouragers and organizers of our young people in selling murder and carrying out murderous activities, it is my dream that we will differentiate them and call them enemies of the state, he said. Crawford said his fear was that some persons who are not enemies of the state would be treated as such because of mandatory minimum sentences in the new act. He suggested that before a person is labeled an enemy of the state, the police should go before a panel of 5 judges and convince them that John Brown is an enemy of the state, and then treat John Brown accordingly. The opposition senator then went on to tell the story of a goat farmer who he said was shot and left for dead but recovered. After going back into goat farming, he decided to arm himself with an unlicensed gun as a means of protection. Crawford said the farmer was held by the police and charged with illegal possession of a firearm. He said the police knew of his circumstance, that he was robbed, shot, and left for dead, and was seeking to protect himself and his property. He argued that not all Jamaicans would qualify for a licensed firearm, especially by income. While accepting that he had committed a crime, Crawford argued that under the new Firearms Act, the goat farmer, who he said was not an enemy of the state, would be sentenced to a mandatory minimum of 15 years for illegal possession of firearm. Despite its concerns, the parliamentary opposition supported the legislation, which will take effect after it goes back to the House of Representatives, where it was first passed on September 7, for the amendments to be approved. The Governor-General will then give his assent, after which it will be gazetted before taking effect. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates.